Hi and welcome to Tutorial 12, Essay Writing 2, Understanding the Question and Reading Effectively. The purpose of this tutorial is to help you understand how to interpret essay questions and how to read effectively for your essays. So by the end of the tutorial, you should know how to interpret essay questions, how to select reading materials for your essays, and how to read and take notes for your essays. When you're ready to start working on an essay, the first task is to spend a bit of time interpreting the question. It's not likely to be the case that you'll read the essay question and then automatically know exactly what the question's looking for. Essay questions are often designed to require a bit of interpretation, so it might not be immediately obvious to you what the question's asking you to do. In fact, sometimes it doesn't actually become clear what the question's looking for you to do until you've done some background reading. To help you in this process of interpreting the question, it's useful to look at what we call the task word. The task word is the word that tells you what your essay should do in terms of answering the question. So for example, are you being asked to describe, are you being asked to discuss, or analyse? These different task words do have very different meanings, so it's important that you understand exactly what these words mean so that you don't misinterpret the question. Most common task words are describe, discuss, and critically analyse. To describe means to simply present information on a topic in a descriptive way. Let's consider an example. If you were asked to describe the causes of homelessness, you might find from your reading that there are three main causes, maybe drug misuse, lack of social support, and poverty. Your essay would consist of a description of each of these causes. It's unlikely though that you'd get an essay question that would simply ask you to describe. At university, a goal is to develop your analytical skills, so you're much more likely to be asked to discuss or to critically analyse a topic. If the question asks you to discuss the causes of homelessness, though, this would be a very different question. An essay that discusses a topic will still involve an element of description, all essays do, but to discuss you need to go beyond simple description and show that you're thinking at a higher level. Depending on the essay question, this could involve things like comparing and contrasting, explaining and looking at the evidence. So to discuss the possible causes of homelessness, you'd first of all describe each cause, but then you might consider how the different causes differ, what evidence there is to support each cause, and how they explain homelessness. Critical analysis, as we covered in tutorial 10, is similar to discussing, so you'd expect it to go well beyond simple description and compare and contrast different perspectives, maybe explain if that's appropriate and consider the evidence. Critical analysis also places a lot of emphasis on pointing out strengths and weaknesses and making judgments based on the evidence. So if you were asked to critically analyse the causes of homelessness, you would describe the different causes and you would compare and contrast them. But you'd also consider the strengths and weaknesses of the evidence for each of the different causes. It could be that there was lots of evidence for one cause of homelessness, but not so much for another. So by doing this, you'd be able to come to some kind of judgment about which causes of homelessness are more likely than others. Now this would be quite a tough essay question for a new student, but it's useful to use as an example to help you understand what different task words mean. As well as understanding the task word, another way to help you understand the question is to rewrite it in your own words. Often essay questions use quite complicated language, so if you write it out in your own words, it will help you to stay focused on what's being asked of you. In this slide you can see an example of a real essay question. You can see that the question starts with a quotation, and this is actually quite common in social work essay questions. Its purpose is really just to set the context. It's not part of the question itself, although you might want to link back to it in your essay. To put the question in more simple terms, this question is basically asking, why do social workers need to understand values and ethics? Without covering this topic, obviously this question won't make a lot of sense to you, so don't worry about that too much. The important point here is to see how the question is being interpreted. You might find it useful to pause the video and read through this example. Once you've rewritten the question in a way that makes sense to you, the next step is to break the question down. So based on what you've learned throughout the module, you can jot down any kind of relevant ideas that spring to mind. Then you can write out those ideas as questions to create a set of sub-questions. So as shown in the slide, we've simplified the original question and broken it down into areas that are relevant to the question. So for example, what are values and ethics? What professional frameworks exist for values? Why are values important in social work? And these sub-questions can help focus your thinking and help make sure that you're focused on the question. Now remember here that the task word is to discuss, so it won't be enough to simply describe different ethical codes and values. For example, comparisons, explanations and evidence will be required, as shown in brackets. As a result of this breaking the question down procedure, we now have a clear understanding of what the essay is looking for, and the sub-questions can really help to guide your reading, which is the next step in the essay preparation process. There's quite a lot in this slide, so you might want to spend a bit more time reading through it, so you can pause the video before moving on. Once you fully understand the question, you're ready to look for reading materials to inform what you're going to write about in your essay. The best place to find these materials is the university library, where you'll have access to a range of books and journal articles. It's worth spending some time on the library website, which is full of really useful tutorials and resources. The library staff also run sessions where you can ask questions about how to use the different resources that the library offers. In first year, you'll probably mainly use books to find information for your essays, but as you progress throughout the programme, you'll be expected to make more use of journal articles. Journal articles do tend to be pitched at a higher level though, and often provide more specific information than the general overview that textbooks provide. Once you've selected your reading materials, you're ready to start selecting what you'll actually read from the materials you have. A really common mistake is to take a big pile of books out of the library and then just end up getting overwhelmed and demotivated by thinking that you need to read them all. It's not necessarily the case that the more you read, the better your essay will be. In fact, you could read 10 chapters of books loosely related to the essay question and write a very poor essay, but read, let's say, 2 chapters of books very closely linked to the essay topic and write a very strong essay. The secret is to identify the correct information and be really, really selective and focused in your reading. It's very easy to fall into the trap of reading too broadly around the topic, forgetting the essay question and then going off at a tangent. This is where the sub-questions that you come up with when interpreting the question become useful. Rather than trying to find information for all aspects of the essay at once, it's far more manageable to look for information on each of your sub-questions separately. In this way, rather than reading around the topic generally and feeling like you're getting nowhere, the sub-questions can guide your reading so that you're looking for answers to each question in your reading. The sub-questions and chunks of information that you find in each of them can then be used to structure your essay. This slide summarises the process of reading for your essay and taking notes. As you'll be reading from a variety of sources, you won't be able to hold everything that you read in your head, so it is important that you take notes. Taking notes when reading will also help you understand what you're reading and help you take it in. So as discussed in the previous slide, start off by looking for information that helps you answer your sub-questions. Try to do this quite quickly by skimming through the contents of books and the headings within the chapters. Then highlight the passages that are relevant. The next stage shouldn't be rushed and requires a high level of concentration. Here you should take a small section at a time and think about what the author's point is. Once you've done that, write it out in your own words and take a note of the source and page number so that you can reference it and find it again if you need to. Whatever you do, do not just copy down word for word what you read. If you do this, you'll probably not take it in and you'll just end up wasting time. You'll have to use your own words to avoid plagiarism anyway, so it's much more efficient to use your own words in the first place. Now, once you've covered each of your sub-questions and you're finished taking notes, you're ready to start writing. The next tutorials in this series talk you through the structure of an essay and how to write the introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. You can pause the video before moving on to the final slide if you need a bit more time. To sum up, the key points of this tutorial are: when interpreting the essay question, pay attention to the task word and bear in mind that simple description will rarely be enough. Most essays will require some discussion or critical analysis. Try to rewrite the question in your own words and then come up with a series of points that are relevant to the topic. Phrase these as sub-questions and use them to guide your reading. Use the library to locate reading materials and spend some time on the library website to learn how to access the various resources. Find reading materials that are specific to the topic so that you're selective in your reading and use your sub-questions to focus your reading. Finally, take notes when you read, following the procedure outlined previously, and don't just copy what you read word for word.